to go through a stretching routine that can help combat some of the sitting and forward postures that we've been assuming so much lately from all the time that we're spending on devices and watching television or whatever we're doing, just the indoor things. So hopefully this will help to open space up a little bit and make you feel a little bit more stretched out. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the front of the neck, and we're going to try to stretch this area out very gently. So what I'm going to do is start with my hands here in my collarbones, and that's just going to anchor those collarbones down. I just have a very gentle amount of pressure there, nothing really intense, just enough so they stay still. Now, I can go into a variety of positions. Really, any position that the head and neck moves in is fair game. I'm going to start with just a gentle turn of my head one way, and I can feel some stretching there. And I'm going to turn my head the other way. And I'm a little bit stiffer to the left, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time this way today. And then I'll come back. And the head also, we know, tilts, so we can try some tilting of the head. Right ear to right shoulder in my case. And then we could try the other direction. And once again, I can feel a little bit more stiffness going this way, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time there. I want to make sure I'm in that nice, neutral, upright posture the entire time I do this. Again, we have a tendency to be forward, so why don't we come back with our chin and then look up and just open up some of that space in the front. And just open up and feel the stretch on the front muscles of the neck. Now, there's nothing to say that we can't combine motions. So, for instance, I can tilt my head one way and maybe rotate it another, and sense a very nice stretch on this side of my neck when I do that. And if that's a stretch that I seem would work for me, that's certainly one I can do. So I encourage you to play around with different motions and look for the ones that benefit you, the ones that feel best to you, and spend some time on those particular ones. I'm going to move on now to the chest area. Now, if you notice, the couch is pretty prominent in the video here, and that's because all the exercises that I'm going to do from this point on involve the couch. The first one I'm going to do involves the pectoral muscle, the chest muscle. So again, we're forward a lot, either on our devices or on the computer, doing this much of the day. So one way we can open up the space is we can help the couch create a little bit of pectoral stretching. I'm going to put my arm in this 90-degree position, come on down, and I'm going to start to sink down towards the floor a little bit. And as I sink down towards the floor, I'm just starting to get a stretch here in the front of my chest. To make that stretch advance into the pectoral muscle, I'm going to drag my body just a little bit away from the couch. So my arm's getting sort of caught on the seat, and I can feel a little bit of tug on that structure, on the structures right here in the front. If I want to create a little bit more stretch, as I dip down and I'm dragging over, I would also look away and rotate away. And that's really going to maximize that stretch, starting to rotate my trunk away and maximize the stretch. Now this distinctly feels stretchy. It doesn't feel noxious or scary. It doesn't pinpoint at a joint. It just feels like I'm getting a nice stretch in through the tissue. So whenever you do this stretch or any stretch, that's what you're really going for, a sense of stretch. It should feel strong, perhaps, but never so strong that it makes you hold your breath, and certainly never so uncomfortable that you would use the word noxious or sharp. Those are words that tell you that something just isn't right, so you want to back off from that kind of a sensation. After I did one side, I would turn around and I would do the other side. We're going to move on though. We're going to go to the hamstrings. And again, we can use the couch quite nicely. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to put one leg up on the couch. Okay. Very first thing is to work on just getting your knee as straight as you can. And right now, just because of my weight, my butt sinks down low and my knee is going to naturally bend. So a good way to get this knee to straighten out is by activating the quad muscle. So I'm going to tighten up that thigh muscle, and as soon as I do, you're going to see my foot go up, which means like a teeter-totter. As the foot goes up, that knee is going to go down, and that's going to create a nice straighter structure here for that hamstring to stretch off of. If I'm sitting up tall and I'm thinking about taking my lowest rib and bringing my lowest rib down to my thigh, I'm going to start getting a stretch. If you notice, I don't have to go very far before I get a stretch. Now, to best attack this muscle, you want to square the hips off. And a nice simple way to do that is to reach for the outside of the ankle with the inside hand. So I'm going to come across my body, reach for that ankle of the stretching leg with my inside hand, squaring the hips, and that really cinches that hamstring quite nicely. So I've got the quad engaged, I've got my hips square, and I'm trying to get that lowest rib down to the thigh. Okay? And my flexibility in this particular instance, I'd say, was average. For some of you who can go deeper, you'll be able to fold. You may be able to bend that elbow and fold in nice and deeply. And then for others, that hand may only be to the knee. And that's perfectly okay. It's really wherever your body senses the stretch. Once again, when I was done with this side, I would turn and I would do the other side. Let's go to the glutes. So once again, I'm going to use the couch to help me out. I'm going to sit here, take one foot up. You've probably seen this stretch many times. I want to make sure that I'm in nice tall posture, so I'm going to try to bring my spine up nice and straight. Similar to the hamstring stretch, I don't want to bring my head down. I want to keep my spine in a nice elongated position. So I'm going to think about bringing my ribs down forward. Just by bringing my ribs down, keeping my spine straight and having my knee up, I can start to sense that stretch around the buttock here. If I want to intensify that, I can try a few things. One, I can bring this in a little tighter, try to bring my foot, slide my foot down towards me a little bit tighter. I can also push the knee very gently down towards the ground and then lean over. I also don't have to go straight on. Okay? I can, for instance, turn away from the up knee, or I can turn toward the up knee and come down. And whichever position is going to feel best for you is the one that you want to focus on. So I personally feel a little bit more stretch when I turn away. So I'm going to turn away and I'm going to come in, and that really, really captures that hip quite well, especially if I focus on a gentle, very gentle pressure down. It's intense. Again, I'm going to try contract, relax. I'm going to contract the muscle by pressing the knee harder toward the ground. In other words, my knee strength, my leg strength is pulling my knee down. I'm not doing it with my hand. And then as I release that, maybe I can very gently push with the hand and create a little bit more range of motion. Again, intensity is good, but noxious is not. And we don't want to go for that. If you stop breathing, it's probably noxious. So you can use your breath as an indicator whether or not something is too intense or not. Next, we're going to use the couch for a very classic stretch. It's called the couch stretch, and it's specifically for the hip flexors and the quadriceps. We're going to start with a standing couch stretch. There's two ways to do it. One, I'm going to bring my leg up here with my knee coming all the way back to where the seat and the back of the couch meet. Right? This foot, down foot, is going to be quite close to the couch. Now, I have a pretty shallow couch. If you have a very deep one, you might need to put a pillow or two here just so that you feel like you have enough motion. Right from the beginning of this stretch, I have my knee behind my hip, which is a great start. Right? From here, I'm going to bend forward just a little bit to get started. And the reason is I want to make sure that I can brace my abdominals and brace my glutes before I start moving. Right? That's important because when these structures are braced, they help to center the bones. I want my thigh bone centered in the socket. And if I don't tighten up structures, then the bone can stretch and kind of go anywhere in the socket that it wants. In an ideal world, we really want that bone centered so that we're stretching the structures when the bone is properly aligned. So if I can tighten my glutes and tighten my abs, that helps to center it. And then I'm going to start coming up, and I'm going to start to begin to feel a stretch. You usually feel a stretch sooner when you do center by tightening up the musculature around the joint like this. So this is a nice way to start. I can do a contract, relax like I did before. I can drag my knee into the seat of the couch, hold for a 4 count, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on the release, my goal, see if I can get a little bit. If you notice, I didn't go back very far, but that's enough. Something is fine. Nothing is actually fine. Just trying to advance the stretch, even if that just means I feel more relaxed in exactly the same position, that's also an advance, and that's something that you can work on as well. All right? So after a couple of repetitions of this, I would switch to the other side. Now this particular stretch can focus in quite well on the quadriceps. We'll get a little bit of this hip flexor up here, but probably more of the thigh muscle down here. To advance the stretch in general, I'm going to bring it to the floor. So it's actually the same positioning. I'm just going to come down, and I'm going to put my knee on the floor now, and my leg up on the back of the couch. Once again, I'm going to start in this forward position. I'm going to brace my abdominals a bit, kind of crunching down, get a nice contraction in my glute, and I'm going to do the same thing as before. I'm going to start to come up until I sense a stretch. Now, right now, I'm sort of in this halfway between all the way up and part of the way down, and I'm a little bit shaky here. So I can use a prop, like a foam roller, and that can help to stabilize me, and that's fine. So I'm going to stabilize here. I'm going to create, again, that contraction here in the glute. I have the contraction in the front. Hold, 2, 3, 4. And if possible, I'm going to see if I can come back a little bit further and get a little bit more stretch. Now, if you can get to this nice upright or fairly upright posture, if you've been with me before in mobility classes, you know very often I'll bring an arm up, and that's opening up this whole front space. And I'll lean over and then rotate toward that up arm. And by adding in these little extra movements, we capture a little bit more musculature and a little bit more of the muscles that cross over multiple joints, not just my hip joint, but actually my pelvis into my back, and even my back up towards my upper back and neck. So we can really get a lot of musculature by adding some of these additional movement patterns. And then, of course, again, you do the opposite side. The last stretch I'm going to do for you today is child's pose, but we're going to do it a little bit differently. Instead of doing it on the floor with our hands on the floor, I'm going to use the couch one last time to help me out. So I'm going to turn. I'm going to be in a relative child's pose position, hands on the couch. I'm going to start to push back. I want to keep my chest forward, try to keep my shoulder blades engaged a little bit as I come back. As I start to go back, I'm also going to go down, descend towards the floor. I'm going to start to get that stretch. I want to think of myself almost as a hammock here, letting my center, my breastbone, really start to come forward towards the floor and really pull into that. If I engage my shoulder blades a little bit, I can actually assist the back coming up so that the chest can fall through. Once I'm at the maximum amount of stretch that I can gain, I'm going to turn my palms up toward the ceiling. Rotating my palms up will capture a little bit more of these lat muscles and increase the stretch just a little bit more. Okay, I don't want to hang my head down. I want to actually use a little bit of muscle contraction to keep my head in neutral. We're going to breathe in. Hold for 4. And then release. And come on through. And as I go through that release, I can really feel the stretch on the lats, a little bit on the backs of those ribs, and I can sense that the breastbone is going more and more toward the floor. So again, that's just a little routine that you can do to work on stretching some of the musculature that gets so forward and so tight from the sitting and forward positioning that we've been in so much lately. This is an example of what I do in mobility class. We also spend a fair amount of time using props like foam rollers, and we also use, sometimes we use lacrosse balls, sometimes tennis balls, sometimes, like today I used a couch as an additional prop. I might use a chair or a stair or something else too. So I'd love for you to join me sometime and join the class. We have a lot of fun, and I really hope that you can find time on a Wednesday to do it. Thank you. Bye-bye.